Good night and welcome to Benalmádena's first English news broadcast. Digital Costa del Sol brings you every Friday all the information about this week's news. The City Council will care with a social labor intervention plan to the dwellers of the complex of the Three Pintores after their eviction. This plan will provide all residents with accommodation for a short period in addition to covering their health and food needs. Following a court order on Thursday, the residents who lived in the Los Tres Pintores hotel complex in Benalmádena Costa were evicted, a private property in a state of abandonment for years, which had generated an unhealthy situation and risk of fire in the environment. Although this hotel complex is a private property that is not the responsibility of this city council, they asked the court to intervene by ordering the eviction to meet the demand of the residents of the area concerned about the unhealthiness and risks to the environment caused by this situation, explained Benalmádena's mayor Víctor Navas. The mayor recalled that the eviction was preceded by years of previous work by the City Council, which has led to up to 3 actions of operational services with a total cost of 60,000 euros to collect waste from the environment and proceed to close the access, in addition to constant visits from social services to assess the situation of each resident and from local police officers to proceed with their identification. In response to neighborhood complaints, the local administration has submitted reports of unhealthiness and fire risk in the buildings of the complex that have supported the eviction. All this previous work by the City Council has made it possible to present a file before the court that has facilitated the eviction to take place with all the legal guarantees, Navas stressed. On the other hand, they have approved an emergency contract with the Red Cross for the development of a social and labor intervention plan to cover the housing, health and food needs of the residents. In addition to guaranteeing and recovering health and safety in the environment, thanks to this plan, they offer a social response to the situation of extreme vulnerability of the residents. This plan will provide all residents with accommodation for a period of 6 months, in addition to providing them with the resource to find a job that will facilitate their social reintegration and find a permanent housing alternative. In this action, the local police, firefighters, operational services, social services and health agents have participated. The residents have been tested for COVID, hepatitis and AIDS. Those who test positive for COVID will be housed in apartments rented by the Red Cross to facilitate the mandatory confinement. After the eviction of the complex, the court obliges the current property to proceed with the complete enclosure of all the buildings and to maintain a private surveillance that prevents new occupations. Benalmádena maintained its cultural activity during the first quarter of 2022. It will be 3 months full of activities and cultural leisure that includes theater, classical music, and humor. The Councillor for Culture, Pablo Centella, has advanced some of the lines of the culture program for the coming month. During the first months of the year, in culture they plan the large number of activities that they develop to maintain the cultural pulse in the city, he explained. In January, February and March, they also maintain an important cultural program, and in this sense, it wants to once again highlight the good work carried out by the libraries, which keep their reading clubs active, as well as various courses and workshops. Also, in these first months of 2022, the Masmadera Cinema Club continues with its film programming every Thursday at the Casa de la Cultura, and the Ateneo Libre de Benalmádena keeps the social and scientific debate alive on Wednesdays of each week. This 2022, the Theatre and Humor Contest will be recovered at the end of January. In addition, there will be 2 exhibitions in the House of Culture and the Exhibition Center related to historical and democratic memory. Both will open at the end of January, and one, that of the House of Culture, will be centered on the Mauthausen concentration camp, and another, that of the exhibitions curated by Jesus Majada, will be a reminder of the tragic historical episode of the Civil War of La Desbandada. On the occasion of the celebration of Women's Day on March 8, they will organize a series of activities to underline the commitment of culture to equality between men and women. In February, the classical music season will also continue, will launch for the first time from culture on a monthly basis. The Bilbil Castle will also continue with its usual program of exhibitions. It will be a first quarter of 2022 full of activity and cultural leisure, with the aim of continuing to work with the aim of turning Benalmádena into the cultural capital of the Costa del Sol. Sports will carry out improvements this year, such as the closing of the exterior tracks of the Arroyo de la Miel Sports Center or the renovation of the lawn of the Retamar field. Meanwhile, the Ice Club will reopen its doors shortly. Benalmádena's Mayor Víctor Navas and the Councillor for Sports Joaquín Villazón visit the Arroyo de la Miel covered pavilion to check the results of the improvement works that are being carried out there and that these days are facing their final stretch, with the idea that the facilities return to full activity in early February. The government team is very satisfied with the management carried out in the sports area to improve its facilities, which represents a before and after for Benalmádena due to the leap in quality it is assuming, and which adds to the numerous success of the athletes and local clubs. With this visit, they want to value the commitment of this government team for the renovation of some infrastructures, which in some cases had not received a reform for more than 25 years, this sports hall being an example of this. An action that comes in addition to actions already carried out, such as the renovation of the athletics track and installation of artificial grass on the soccer field of this same sports center, or the renovation of the soccer field at the Benalmádena Pueblo Sports Center. Regarding future actions, the mayor has announced that the Ice Club facilities will reopen the doors shortly. They are completing the process of awarding a new company for its management in the absence of the delivery of some documentation by part of the successful tender. In addition, this 2022, they are already working on the tender for the drafting of the project for the closing of the 2 outdoor sports courts of the Arroyo Sports Center, so that they become a new pavilion like this one and allow sports practice during the winter months, with the idea that the works begin at the end of the year, announced the mayor, who has estimated the cost of this action at about 4 million euros. The first mayor has valued this project together with the renovation of the Retamar field lawn as the 2-star projects in sports for this year. He also regrets that the award of the works for the renovation of the Retamar track lawn was left desert in its first call due to the current situation caused by the pandemic, with a shortage and increased cost of some construction materials, although they are already working to put this action out to tender again shortly. With all these actions, Benalmádena is once again at the forefront in terms of sports facilities and practices he values. The Sports Councilman Villazón has detailed that this change was highly demanded by athletes and users of the facilities. It represents an investment of about 250,000 euros, and it has allowed to take advantage of the action to also paint the walls of the pavilion and buy goals and a new scoreboard, all of which will contribute a new image for the sports center. With this action, they give continuity to the process of modernization of sports facilities in the desire to improve the service they offer to citizens. Registered neighbors will be able to request their card for the free use of municipal public transportation from today. The card will only allow free use of the line 103 in order to facilitate the use of urban transport. Benalmádena's Mayor, Víctor Navas, the Councillor for Mobility and CEO of Innoven, Javier Marín, and the manager of Innoven, Eva Fortes, present this week the new cards that will allow registered residents to use the municipal public transport service completely free, and that citizens will be able to start requesting as of next Friday, January 14. With this card, they want to offer residents all the facilities for the use of urban transport, adding to previous initiatives such as the launch of an app that informs about the closest stops and the exact frequency of buses, explained the mayor. It is an important bet for the promotion of a new mobility and represents the definitive advance of an initiative that they already started previously for pensioners, students, and people with disabilities who have used this urban line for free for years. They want to improve the quality of life of citizens, thus adding to the few municipalities in the province that facilitate the free use of public transport to their neighbors, value the mayor. With this measure, they also managed to increase the number of registered citizens, thus approaching to exceed the threshold of the 75,000 registered inhabitants, which will allow to double the amount of transfers that the City Council receives from the state and the autonomous government. Regarding interurban transport, which depends on the Transport Consortium, they will also make the appropriate request to ensure that in the future these lines are also free to use for registered residents, but it is a measure that does not depend on this City Council, but on other administrations such as the Junta de Andalucía and the Provincial Council. All residents registered in Benalmádena will be able to request their transportation card from January 14 for free use of line 103 of the municipal service. From Innoven, they estimate that once the card has been requested, the issuance and delivery period will be about 2 weeks. The CEO of Innoven has explained that citizens can request the card in 2 ways. Electronically by clicking on a banner that will appear on the main page of the City Council website, benalmadena.es, or by requesting them at the 2 offices of Citizen Service, at the Town Hall in Benalmádena Pueblo and at the Social Services Building in Arroyo de la Miel. Right now, the card will only allow free use of line 103, but they want to be ambitious. They are working so hard to increase the frequency of this line, especially in the bands on weekends, where they have detected certain shortcomings, as in the possible extension of its route, so that it can reach other parts of the municipality, improvements that they hope to implement over the next few months. This new card will replace those that previously provided free use of line 103 for retirees, students, and people with disabilities, although in the case of students, their card will remain valid until the end of the course, and in the case of the elderly, who will be able to keep the same card that they request during its validity of 4 years. Coronavirus test rules change for travelers arriving in England. Passengers will be able to take a lateral flow test on day 2 instead of a PCR test. Transport Secretary Grant Shapps announced last week that the pre-departure test will no longer be needed from January 7th at 4 a.m., when the requirement to self-isolate while waiting for post-arrival test results will also be removed. From 4 a.m. on Sunday 9 January, the post-arrival PCR test, currently required, can be replaced by a cheaper lateral flow test. Shapps tweet, "We are removing the temporary extra testing measures we introduced last year at the border to slow cases of Omicron coming to the UK. Now Omicron is the dominant variant and is widespread in the UK. These measures are no longer proportionate." By reducing testing requirements for fully vaxxed passengers to just a lateral flow post-arrival, we're supporting the safe reopening of international travel. We'll do a full review of travel measures by the end of January to ensure a stable system is in place for 2022, he added. In response to the latest announcement on changes to international travel testing measures, Mark Tanser, chief executive of the Association of British Travel Agents, said, "The government's announced that travellers will no longer have to take a pre-departure test on return to England is extremely welcome news." The removal of pre-departure testing recognizes that with the Omicron variant now widespread throughout the country, these tests do not serve a useful purpose. Pre-departure tests not only add to cost and create inconvenience, they can also plant a seed of doubt among some travelers who wonder what will happen if test positive abroad, which can be a considerable disincentive to booking an overseas trip. We also welcome the move to change post-arrival day to PCR test to cheaper lateral flow test, returning to the process in place in October 2021 before Omicron emerged and reducing testing costs for travelers, he added. Meanwhile, Andalucía adds 28 coronavirus deaths, the highest figure in 4 months. Another 8,510 COVID-19 infections have been reported in the region, but the incidence rate has dropped to 1,610, according to the data from the Andalusian Institute of Statistics and Cartography. The 14-day incidence rate in the region has dropped and stands at 1,609.8 cases per 100,000 inhabitants, some 37.3 fewer than on Monday. By provinces, Málaga is the one with the most new positives, with 1,817, followed by Almería with 1,436 or Seville with 1,181. Of the 28 deaths, 7 were reported in Málaga, 6 in Seville, 5 in Jaén, 4 in Almería, and 2 each in Córdoba, Granada, and Huelva. Cádiz is the only province that has not registered any deaths. Blood donations of all types are urgently needed in Andalucía. Reserves are low after Christmas and New Year's holidays, and donations are needed to ensure supply at the hospitals. The Andalusian Network of Transfusion Medicine, Tissues and Cells at the Ministry of Health and Families has issued an urgent call for donated blood to continue guaranteeing the needs of hospitals throughout the region. Donations of blood and plasma can be made at fixed donation points in the provincial capitals and larger towns, and at mobile units traveling through the municipalities and districts of the 8 provinces. Blood is needed from all groups. The daily needs for donations vary by province and are estimated based on the demand anticipated for the week ahead. The Andalusian Network of Transfusion Medicine, Tissues and Cells of Andalucía encourage all eligible residents of the region to donate blood. Information about when and how to do that can be found on websites and social networks of the blood transfusion centers in Andalucía and also on the Andalusian Health Service website in the Donate Blood section. Information can also be found on the APP Dona Sangre Andalucía, the official APP of the Network of Blood Transfusion Centers of the Andalusian Public Health. People who donate blood should be 18 and 65 years of age and weigh at least 50 kilos. They should not suffer from chronic disease or have an acute infection. They should not be anemic or carry the risk of spreading disease such as hepatitis, syphilis, or AIDS. It is mandatory to bring documents such as the DNA or NIE, and it is advisable not to go on an empty stomach. Men can donate blood up to 4 times a year and women 3, with a minimum interval of 2 months between donations. Specific plasma donors can donate every 15 days. However, anyone who lived in Britain for 12 months or more between 1980 and 1996 or spent a non-consecutive amount of time in the UK equaling 12 months during that period is not allowed to give blood in Spain because of first they could transmit Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, also known as mad cow disease. And these are today's headlines. A social labor intervention to the dwellers of the Los Tres Pintores complex. 3 months full of cultural activity. New improvements at the Arroyo de la Miel Sports Center. The bus line 103 will be free for Benalmádena's residents. New rules for travelers. Blood is needed. In the western third, intervals of cloudy skies are expected without ruling out weak and occasional rainfall in the early hours on the coast. In the rest, predominance of slightly cloudy skies with cloudy intervals in the afternoon. Minimum temperatures in descent and maximums unchanged with weak frost in high areas. Variable loose winds in the eastern third and an eastern component in the rest, decreasing during the afternoon. Maximum temperature expected will be 15 and minimum 7. That's all. Thank you for watching us. You can stay updated on our website or social media profile on Facebook and Twitter. Have a good night and enjoy the weekend.